ಬನ್ನಿ. ಯಾವ್ದಾಗ್ತಿತ್ತು
ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್
ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸೆಷನ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ
ಆದ್ರೆ ಕಾಪಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೀನಿ.
ಸರಿ ಆಯ್ತು.
ಪೆನ್ ಡ್ರೈವ್
ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ? ಮಾತಾಡೋದಾ? Dear participants, good morning to all of you.
Good morning, sir.
Good
morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Very good morning, sir.
Very good morning, sir.
Thank you once again.
Morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Okay, thank you. Please meet the speaker, please.
ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇಡಪ್ಪ, ನಾನು ಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ ತಗೋತೀನಿ.
ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್.
ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇಡಪ್ಪ.
Dear participants, good morning to all of you once again. And for this morning session, we have with us Professor M. Pushpa Madam as a resource person. Dr. M. Pushpa Madam is presently serving as a professor in the Department of Studies in Education, University of Mysore. And in addition, he is also serving at present as Director of Center for Women's Studies. She has put in more than 25 plus years of teaching, research and administrative experience to her credit. She started her career as a lecturer at the Department of Education at Karnataka Institute Dharwad, then shifted to Institute of Mysore and eluded as an associate professor and professor in the department. And he also served as a chairperson of the Department of Studies in Education. And she participated and presented papers in more than 30 to 40 workshops, seminars, conferences at a state, national and international level. And more than 15 articles were published in different national and international journals. And she also completed several major research projects sponsored by DSCRT, Government of Karnataka, and even from University of Mysore. And she is also a team member of many research projects. And she is also guiding 6 research candidates. And she also had more than 150 MAd dissertations. Her area of specialization is technology of teaching, psychology of education, sociology of education, guidance and counseling, educational assessment and evaluation, and personality development, etc. And she is representing as member of many boards like Board of Examination, Appointment Board, Board of Studies, so and so in the area of education. And very recently, she acted as a course coordinator of refresh course in education in our center successfully. And she is a regular resource person to our center. With this brief, I welcome wholeheartedly Professor M. Pushpa Madam to this online lecture session on behalf of all the participants through online and also on behalf of the MFDC Center and University of Mysore. Over to Pushpa Madam. Please, 1 minute.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning, madam. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning. Okay, we will move on to
Good morning, madam.
very good morning to all of you. Okay. So now you are in the faculty induction program. I think all of you have entered the field of teaching as teachers. So yes, of course, including me, I'm also a teacher. So being a teacher, we are teaching our students. ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. But still, we don't know what is teaching. And what is this teaching learning process? Is teaching and learning are one and the same? So these are all the questions. If I ask a question to you, like what is teaching, I may get different and a number of answers for the question what is teaching. So here even this concept may put question in front of us whether the teaching is responsible for the learning or learning should happen only through the teaching or whether the teaching should be ended in the learning. So these are the some of the questions which we are going to get in our mind. Then what is this teaching? ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಈ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ನಾವು ಯಾಕೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಬೋಧನಾ ಕಲಿಕಾ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ? ಮತ್ತೆ ಮೊದಲಿಗೆ ಟೀಚರ್ ಆಗಿ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಎ ಟೀಚರ್ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ನೋ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್, ಹೌ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡಿಫೈನ್ ಇಟ್, ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್. Let us see. So my session covers the meaning of the teaching, the concept of teaching, and then what are the different phases of teaching and different levels of teaching. So let us move through the concept of teaching. So the simple definition I have taken, which is given by Clark, and we have number of definitions given by different educationists and academicians. So here I have taken a definition given by Clark. What he says, teaching is nothing but it is the activities that are designed and performed to produce change in students' behavior. Okay. Here, simply he says it is a group of activities which is aimed or which is designed to bring the changes in the students' behavior. So, and if we go through this definition here, what it says, the teaching is a group of activities. ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಬೇರೇನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ, it includes number of activities. Just assume you are in the classroom and you are teaching. So what are the activities you are going to conduct in your classroom to transact your curriculum or your syllabus or whatever the content you want to teach? So you are going to design some activities. So that activities, you have some intention behind that designing that activities. So that activities are considered, that group of or set of activities are considered as teaching. So, but here what we are doing, just we are saying a group of activities itself is the teaching. But we are not saying who is going to teach, what he is going to teach, through what. So we can't consider this as teaching. So here, and if we go to the see the Clark, where he says teaching a set of all those activities, and then if we analyze the definition given by Clark, what it says, it presents very limited view of functions and scope. What I said, what are the functions of teaching, what is the scope of teaching, we are not giving in that definition what given by Clark. And here, if we go to the another meaning of the teaching, here what Morrison says here, teaching is a disciplined social process. Okay, teaching is a disciplined process, and the teaching intends or it wants to bring about, it is nothing but the transaction of the curriculum to the students, or he says where the teacher experiences the behavior of the pupil and helps to according to the needs and ideals of the society. So here teaching is a disciplined social process, that is teacher by virtue of his ideal position, because it is a transaction of the learning experiences from a more matured person to the less matured person, what Morrison says. Here, more matured person is the teacher and less matured person is the students. So being a teacher, that is being my position, what I am going to do, I have knowledge, I have status and I have experiences. I am going to influence the behavior of the students whom we are going to consider as less experienced. And then we are going to help them according to the needs and ideals of the society. We are going to help the students to change their behavior. So here what Morrison says, even that definition where it is reduced to what teacher teaches. See, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಲೆಸ್ ಮೆಚ್ಯೂರ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಟೀಚರ್ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅದಷ್ಟೇ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಸೀಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಹೊರತಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಆಚೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಜೊತೆಗೆ the student should copy whatever the teacher says. with ಟೀಚರ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು ಅಲ್ಲಿ. And then there is no interactions and there is no instruction flow from the teacher. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟೀಚರ್ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅದನ್ನಷ್ಟೇ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಮತ್ತು ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರ ನಡುವೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಏನಾಗ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ಲಿಸನರ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ, ಅದರ ಅರ್ಥವನ್ನ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲೇನ್ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಈ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕ್ಲಾರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಮಾರಿಸನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಇನ್ನು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಇದಾವೆ. ಆ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಈ ಬೋಧನೆ ಎನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ತನ್ನ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯಾಪ್ತಿಯನ್ನ ಕೆಲವೊಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸೀಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಕೇವಲ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸೀಮಿತ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಬರೀ ಬೋಧನಾ ಅನುಭವಗಳಿಗೆ ಸೀಮಿತಗೊಳಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಬರೀ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟೀಸ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸೀಮಿತ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ನೋ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ವಿಚ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗಿವ್ ಎ ಕಾಂಪ್ರಹೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ವಿ ಕಾಂಟ್ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಅ ಕಾಂಪ್ರಹೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಫಾರ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಕಾಂಪ್ರಹೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಹೇಗಿರಬೇಕು, ಒಂದು ಗುಡ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಹೇಗಿರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ವೇರ್ ದಟ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಶುಡ್ ಟೆಲ್ whether whatever we are going to define, that is a process or a product, and it should clearly indicate the elements of that process, and it should reveal the objectives of that process, and then it should also say a structural aspect of that process. ಒಂದು ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಕಾಂಪ್ರಹೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್, ಒಂದು ಸಮಗ್ರವಾದಂತಹ ಅರ್ಥವನ್ನ ಕೊಡುವಂತಹ ವ್ಯಾಖ್ಯೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರಲ್ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಅದರ ಕಾಂಪೋನೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನು, ಅದರ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ಸ್ ಏನು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದರದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಏನು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದರ ಆ ಒಂದು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ನಾವೇನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ ಅದು ಪ್ರಾಸೆಸ್, ಆ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್, ಇವೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ಹೇಳುವಂತದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಕಾಂಪ್ರಹೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟೇಕನ್ ಎ ಕಾಂಪ್ರಹೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ which meets all the criteria whatever I have said. So here teaching is a triadic relation involving the sources of teaching, that is it may be human or material, and student, and set of activities designed and manipulated primarily to bring changes in the behavior of the student. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕಾಂಪ್ರಹೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್. ಸಿ ಇಟ್ ಸೇಸ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಟ್ರಯಾಡಿಕ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್. ಟ್ರಯಾಡಿಕ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್? It has a triangular relationship. There will be a relation between three components. This mentions the three components or elements of the teaching, like sources of teaching. That is, it may be human, that is teacher or material, and another one element is student, and then another one element is set of activities. So there is a triadic relationship between this teaching, student, and set of activities. And see, it also mentions about the purpose. It reveals the intention of this concept, where it is designed and manipulated to bring changes in the behavior of the student. So bring changes here, now we say bring desirable behavioral changes. Desirable, yes, ಎಲ್ಲಾ ರೀತಿಯ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳಾಗ್ಬೋದು, ಆದ್ರೆ ಆಗುವಂತಹ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳು ಅಪೇಕ್ಷಿತ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳಾಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು. ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಇನ್ ಡಿಸೈರಬಲ್ form. Then only we can consider that process as a ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅವರ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್, ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಅವರ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ when it meets all these criteria. For example, if we consider our present online transaction or our present online teaching, see here, yes, of course, I am here, that is I am human, that is your teacher, you are the participants, and then there is a set of activities, that is activities may be I'm through verbal mode using this online with the help of the online mode. I am teaching or I am transacting whatever I want to ಮೇಕ್ ಯು ಟು ಲರ್ನ್. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ನೀವೇನು ಕಲಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೇನೆ, ಆ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಮೈ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿಸ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್ ದಟ್ ಐ ಶುಡ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಯು ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಹಿಯರ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಅವರ್ teaching, our classroom, whatever the process just now we are having as the teaching. ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗಿಯೂ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಪರಿಗಣಿಸ್ಬೋದು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲೊಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಬರ್ಬೋದು, ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆಯೋದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಟೀಚಿಂಗಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಈ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ರೂಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆಯೋದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗಿಯೂ ಅದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಅರ್ಥ ಇದೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಫಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರೀತೇವೆ. ಹಾಗೇನೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಆಚೆ ಇರುವಾಗ ಈಗ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಏನ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ದೇ ಮೇ ಗೋ ಟು ದ ಲೈಬ್ರರಿ ಅಂಡ್ ನಾವ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ಫಿಂಗರ್ ಟಿಪ್ಸ್ ದ internet. Through that also we are going to learn, okay? And then some students or some children, they may learn by interacting with others, or they may learn by interacting with the elder people or some professionals or some experienced people. By interacting with them itself, they can get the knowledge and they can learn something. So then can we consider all these as teaching? Yes, but we are not going to call them as teaching because there is no sources of teaching. There is no formal structure there. So thus teaching which happens within the formal structure, like which has its own objectives, a structural aspect, and the materials or the elements, then we can consider it as a formal teaching. And the students which is going to learn out of the classroom, we can call it as an instruction or teaching that is informal teaching. That is, the child might learn in the library or through the online resources like that. So if you want to consider a process as a teaching, then it should include the elements and the activities and the intention of that process. Then only we can consider it as a teaching. So I think I am clear about the meaning of the teaching. So let us see what are the characteristics of this teaching. So ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ, we are all teachers. So what is teaching? ಅದರ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, the first point, it is a complex social phenomena. Why we are going to call teaching as a complex social phenomena? So we are living in the society and whatever we are teaching and whatever the material we are going to transact, it is for the society only. Even the teaching happens in the society, and even our classroom is also a miniature society. So therefore here the teaching, it is considered as a social phenomena and it is complex. Why it is complex? We know that the society is not static, it is dynamic, it goes on changing. So as the society changes, even the process of teaching also get influenced by that change. So therefore it is considered as a complex social phenomena. As society changes, the process of teaching, the nature of teaching also changes. If we go through the different commissions and the committees, whatever they have recommended for the system of education, they have recommended a different curriculum pattern and different structural pattern, and also with reference to the pedagogy. ಬೋಧನಾಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆಯೂ ಸಹ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಶಿಫಾರಸುಗಳನ್ನ ರೆಕಮೆಂಡೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ present new one, that is what we say NEP 2020, it also emphasizes on to bring changes in the pedagogy with reference to the levels of teaching. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮ NEP 2020 ಸಹ ಶಾಲೆಯ ಹಂತಗಳು, ವಿವಿಧ ಹಂತಗಳೇನಿದೆ ಆ ಹಂತಗಳಿಗೆ ಅನುಗುಣವಾಗಿ ಪೆಡಗಾಗಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಯನ್ನು ತರೋದಕ್ಕೆ it recommends. So because of that, if for example after 10 years, if again another commission is going to come or another policy comes, again it recommends for the changes in the pedagogy. So therefore it is a complex social phenomenon. The second point here, we consider teaching as art as well as science. How we can consider teaching as an art and science? So it is science by nature, where it involves repertoire of techniques, procedures and skills that can be studied and described and improved. Okay, science, we know science means it is a systematic study of the knowledge and it is observable. So where our teaching involves a number of techniques, procedures and skills that can be studied and we can describe and we can improve our teaching skills, our techniques. So in that manner, teaching is a science. And then how it is an art? You know about the art. So most of you are from the arts background. So where this art means, where that being a teacher, what you are going to do. So although we are having some techniques, procedures and skills, with that we are going to exercise some our own talent and creativity for teaching. So in that manner, we are going to consider teaching as an art also. So therefore, if we see the characteristic of the teaching, where we consider teaching both as art and also as science. And then it is a professional activity. Teaching is a professional activity that involves teacher, student and results in the development of student. ಸೊ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನಲ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ, ಇದೊಂದು ವೃತ್ತಿಪರವಾದಂತಹ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಕಾಲ್ ಆಲ್ ಅದರ್ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಎನಿ ಅದರ್ what we say occasion as professional activity, because teaching we consider as a, even our programs related to teacher education, we are going to consider it as a professional programs. So because it is a professional activity, it includes the teacher, student and results in the development of the student. And then teaching is an output emanating from teachers. ಬೋಧನೆ ಯಾರಿಂದ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್. ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್. And then teaching is a system of actions which are varied in form and are related to content and people behavior in context with the prevailing physical and social conditions. It is a system of actions. While giving the definition given by Clark, what he has said, it is a set of activities. Yes, of course, teaching is a system of actions. So we, being a teacher, we are going to design, we are going to integrate number of actions, and that actions may be in different form. There is no single activity. It may include number of activities, and that activities are related to the content and also to the pupil behavior. That means to the students' needs and interest. And then it says in context with the prevailing physical and social condition. For example, in my classroom, to teach a science topic, I may have some activities. I may have designed some activities like experimentation or demonstration. But my classroom condition, that is the physical condition or the social condition which I have in my school, that may not support the action which I have design. So therefore, here it is a system of action that should that is in different form, and that should be related to the content, that should be related to the pupil behavior, and that should be in accordance with the available physical and social conditions. So therefore, teaching is a system of action. And then the next point, see here what it says, teaching is amenable, it should be amenable to scientific observation and analysis. Where the teaching, not more than I'm teaching, and this simply we can't sit. Whatever you are teaching, it should be observable and it should be undergo through the process of analysis. ವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಣೆಗೆ ಒಳಪಡುವ ಹಾಗಿರಬೇಕು. ವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಣೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ? We are going to see the process of teaching, making it into different parts, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಭಾಗಗಳಾಗಿ ನೋಡುವಂತದ್ದು. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ when it is possible to observe it scientifically and analyze it, then we can call it as a teaching. And then the next characteristic is it is highly dominated by communication skill. Communication skill. If you want to become an effective teacher, you should be an effective communicator. Okay. So effective communicator. This ನೆನಪಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, because my next session is going to concentrate on this topic. So where our process of teaching is highly dominated by communication skill. Yes, of course, I'm excellent in my subject. I have mastery over my subject, but I don't know how to present it, how to communicate my content, whatever the knowledge I have to my students. Then there will be a utter loss. That means the teacher will not become effective. So therefore, the process of teaching, it is highly dominated by communication skill. And then the teaching is an interactive process. It is interactive process. Simply interactive means there is an interaction between the students and the teacher. So with the teacher is not going to simply teach whatever, but the teacher is going to interact with the students, and vice versa. Students are also going to interact with the teachers for the attainment of some specific purposes and objectives. That means being a teacher, before entering into our classroom, each and every teacher has their own objectives for each classroom. ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ತರಗತಿಗೂ ಸಹ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರು ಸಹ ತಮ್ಮದೇ ಆದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶಗಳನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡೇ ತರಗತಿ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಎಂಟರ್ ಆಗುವಂತದ್ದು. ಆ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we can't reach our goal. You know, ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ನೌಕೆ ಅಥವಾ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಡ್ರೈವ್ ಎನಿಥಿಂಗ್, ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎ ಎಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ನಾನು ರೀಚ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅವಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ನೀವು ಏನು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೋಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಈವನ್ ದ ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್, ಇಟ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಸಮ್ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಪರ್ಪಸಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ಸ್, and to achieve or to attain that purpose or objective, the process of teaching should be an interactive one. Interactive process ಆದಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ we can achieve. Otherwise ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ they will become passive. Although ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ ಬಿಡುತ್ತೋ, ಬಟ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಅವರು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದಾಗ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿದ್ರು ಡೌಟ್ಸ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಕೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದಾಗ ನೀವು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗೆ ಏನನ್ನ ಕಲಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೋತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಆ ಗುರಿಯನ್ನ ತಲುಪೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ therefore interactivity, it should be an interactive process to achieve specific purpose and objectives. And then already I told about this, that teaching may have various forms. It has different forms like formal and informal teaching, directional or instructional. What we say, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸೂಚನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಕೊಡೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು. By giving just instructions, the students they learn. So we have directional and instructional form. Training, even training is also a form of teaching. Conditioning or indoctrination is also a form of teaching. Telling, that is your parents are going to tell something, your elders are going to tell something. Showing, remedial teaching we have, etc. All these are the different forms of teaching. And then ಹಿಯರ್ ದ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್ ಎ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲೈಸ್ಡ್ ಟಾಸ್ಕ್. ಬೇರೆ ಇದ್ರ ಥರಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ವಿಶೇಷವಾದಂತಹ ಕಾರ್ಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. And it may be taken as a set of component skills for realization of a specific set of instructional objectives. Teaching is a set of component skills. ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಕೌಶಲಗಳನ್ನು ಒಳಗೊಂಡಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆ, ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯ, ವಿಶೇಷವಾದಂತಹ ಕಾರ್ಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಫಾರ್ ವಾಟ್ ಪರ್ಪಸ್? For the realization of specified set of instructional objectives. ಇಂಥದ್ದೇ ಬೋಧನಾ ಉದ್ದೇಶಗಳು ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತೇವಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನ ಅಚೀವ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸೆಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಾಂಪೊನೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಕಿಲ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೇ ನಾವೇನಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ? ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ಇದಿಷ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಗುಣಲಕ್ಷಣಗಳನ್ನ ಹೊಂದಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆಯನ್ನ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ? ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್. ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ದಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್. Then there is a term which is related to teaching. ಟೀಚಿಂಗಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಹಾಕಿದೆ. ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್? ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ನಾವು ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇವೆ ನಾನು ಟೀಚರು, ನನ್ನ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಕಲಿಕಾರ್ಥಿ, ಲರ್ನರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ನಾನು ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿ ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದಾನೆ, ಸೊ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಆಗೋಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳಿ. ದೆನ್ ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಏನು? ಆ ಕಲಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ನೀವು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಳಿತೀರಾ? ಅಥವಾ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಉಂಟಾಗಿದೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿದೆ? ಹೌ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯು ಮೆಷರ್ ದಟ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಲರ್ನರ್? Okay, so let us see what is learning. So learning, it is relatively permanent changes in behavior, that to desirable changes. Relatively permanent changes in behavior. For example, ಸೊ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಒಂದು ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗೆ ನಾನು ಅಡಿಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಲಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಅಸ್ಯೂಮ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಮ್ಯಾಥ್ಸ್ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್. ಒಬ್ಬ ಗಣಿತ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರು ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಗಣಿತ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರಾಗಿ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಲೈಕ್ ಅಡಿಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಡಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕಲಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ವಿತ್ ದಟ್ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನ್, ವಿತ್ ದಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್, ಐ ಎಂಟರ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಮೈ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್. ಸೊ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ coming out of the classroom, that is after the completion of my class, whatever it may be, 45 minutes or 1 hour of duration, after that hour, what we are going to do? We are going to see some changes in the behavior of our students. That behavior, what is that behavior? That is the students are able to add the fractions. Okay, that is the change which I have brought through my teaching in the students, and the students is going to retain that behavior, that is even after. That means for example, after if the student is in the 8th or in the 9th, even in the 10th, the students are able to perform that calculation, that is they can add. So therefore learning is nothing but it is a relatively permanent changes in behavior of the students. And then teaching consists of all those activities or system of actions that are intended to produce learning. ಈ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಹೇಗಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಬೋಧನೆ ತನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಳಗೊಂಡಿರುವಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಗಳು, ಇಟ್ ಇಂಟೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ದ learning. And then already I told you, teaching should end in learning. ಹೌದಾ? ನಾವು ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇವಾ ನನ್ನ ಬೋಧನೆ ಕಲಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲೇ ಕೊನೆಗೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಾ? ಈಗ ನಾನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಂತಹ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಡಿಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಕ್ಲಾಸಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತು ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೇನೆ ನನ್ನ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ. ಸೊ ನನ್ನ ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ 30 ಮಕ್ಕಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಮಕ್ಕಳೆಲ್ಲರೂ 30 ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಸಹ ಅಡಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಕಲ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ನನ್ನ ಉದ್ದೇಶ. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್, ಈ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊನೆ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾ ಅನ್ನೋಂಥದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ, is it essential for a learning should be initiated by teaching? ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಎನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಬೋಧನೆಯಿಂದನೇ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಸೊ ಈ ಎರಡೂ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಸಿ ಆರ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ನೋ ದ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಫಾರ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟು ಇಕ್ವೇಶನ್, so I can say no, because there is no such cause and effect relationship between teaching and learning. ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಇಂದನೇ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಕಲಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿನೇ ಬೋಧನೆ ಎಂಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳೋದಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಲಿಕೆಗೆ ಬೋಧನೆನೇ ಕಾರಣ, ಹಾಗೆ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೋಧನೆ ಇರಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ರಿಲೇಶನ್ಶಿಪ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ although these teaching and learning, they are independent, the synthesis of these two, teaching and learning process, is essential to bring changes in the behavior of the students. ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಬದಲಾವಣೆಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ತರಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ವರ್ತನಾ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ತರಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮತ್ತು ಕಲಿಕೆ ಇವೆರಡು ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆನೆ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಸ್ ನಾನೀಗ ಟೀಚರು, ನನ್ನ ಕೆಲಸ ಏನೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಲರ್ನರ್ಸ್, ಮೈ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಟೀಚ್. If your teaching is not useful for the other, then we can't call it as a teaching. Likewise, whatever the students are there, if they are not going to learn anything, again we can't call it as a teaching. They are independent, but the synthesis of these two, we need both teaching and learning process to bring the changes in the behavior of the students. So therefore, a good teaching must always be so designed and performed as to result in maximum learning. ಹೇಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ತರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನವನ್ನ ಪಡಬೇಕು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಈಗ ಇರುವಂತಹ 30 ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಸಹ 100ಕ್ಕೆ 100 ಅಂಕಗಳನ್ನ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ, ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಎ ಟೀಚರ್, ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಮೈ teaching learning process in such a way that all the students should get at least maximum percentage, or I expect a maximum percentage of performance among my ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್. 30 ಜನಕ್ಕಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೂ 20 ಮಕ್ಕಳಾದ್ರೂ, ಅಥವಾ ಎಲ್ಲ 30 ಮಕ್ಕಳಲ್ಲೂ 80% ಅಷ್ಟಾದ್ರೂ ಕಲಿಕೆ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಡಿಸೈನ್ ಮೈ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದೆ, ಕಾಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಶುಡ್ ಎಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ. ಎಸ್, ಅಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಶುಡ್ ಎಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ನಾಟ್ ಎಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಲರ್ನಿಂಗ್. ಬಟ್ ಕಾರಣ ಏನು, ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದ ರೀಸನ್ಸ್ ಬಿಹೈಂಡ್ ದಟ್? ಇಫ್ ವಿ ಗೋ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್, ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಎ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ in our psychology that is individual differences. That is, I said, let us 30 students are there in a classroom, but all the 30 students are different. They are not one and the same. They are different in their physical appearance, in their intellectual ability, in their study habits, in their attitude, in their interest, in their aptitude. See, they are different. So even their learning needs are also different. So whatever may be the teacher is very effective. The teacher is teaching in a very good manner. His teaching is very effective, but the students, as they are different, we can't expect a maximum or a full learning among our students. So therefore, for that reason, we say that teaching should not end in learning, or learning should not be initiated by teaching itself only. ಬೋಧನೆಯೊಂದೇ ಕಲಿಕೆಗೆ ಕಾರಣ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಎ ಟೀಚರ್, we should keep all these points in our mind while designing the teaching activities. My aim or my objective should be to get a maximum learning among students. So then we can call it as a good teaching. So ಹಾಗಾಗಿನೇ first we used to call it as a teaching process, but now as both teaching and learning, they are essential to bring changes in the behavior of the students, we term it as a teaching learning process. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಬೋಧನಾ ಕಲಿಕಾ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಾವು ಕರಿತೇವೆ. Then we consider teaching as an interactive process. ಇದನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಏನು ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್? ದಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ there is an interaction among whatever the elements are involved in the process of teaching. Already while giving the definition of the teaching, I said teaching is a triadic process, and this involves three elements mainly: teacher, pupils, and teaching learning materials or methods, device, or teaching learning environment. All these are considered as the elements of the teaching process, and there is an interaction. If the teacher goes to the classroom and simply stands without speaking anything, is teaching happens there? No. If the students are talking, the teacher is simply standing without, then also teaching doesn't happen. If the teacher is teaching or he or she is making the students to understand something, and if the students are not interacting with the teacher, then also the teaching does not takes place. And coming to the third point, teaching learning material. If the teacher does not know what to teach, what to transact, what kind of learning experiences or what kind of methods I have to use, then also teaching does not happen. And if your learning environment, teaching learning environment is not supportive, then also your teaching does not happen. So therefore, there should be an interaction between teacher, pupil, and teaching learning materials. So therefore, teaching is an interactive process involving interaction of these three variables. Okay, so ಹಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿಬಹುದು. And then definitely it is going to help the teachers to achieve their objectives. Whatever the specific objectives they have for their teaching, they can achieve if there is an interaction. Then here, coming to the variables. So we have some already I told elements or components of the teaching. Mainly we can identify three variables in the process of teaching. Adana we classify it as dependent variables, independent variables, and intervening variables. So who is the independent variable? Here the teacher is considered as independent variable. Why independent variable? Because in the classroom teaching learning process, teacher is responsible for the functioning of the dependent variables. Dependent variables is students. Here teacher is the main who is responsible for functioning of the students, and the teacher is going to plan, organize, lead, and control the whole process of teaching to bring desirable changes. Okay, according to the needs of the students, interest of the students, the teacher is going to plan. Because the teacher is independent, she can modify the lesson plans, and she can organize and control the process of teaching to bring desirable changes in the behavior of the student. So therefore, teacher is considered as independent variable in the process of teaching, and where teacher handles the teaching activities and all the intervening variables. Teacher is mainly responsible for the handling of the teaching activities and intervening variables. Whatever the I will come to the what are the intervening variables. So she or he is the main key point in the process of teaching, who is responsible for planning, organizing, leading, and controlling of the process of teaching, and they handle the teaching activities and all the intervening variables. So teaching is the first variable in the process of teaching. Then we have another variable, dependent variable. So Dependent variable. So dependent. Here, students are considered as dependent. Why? Because they depend on the teacher's plan, teacher's organization of activities, etc. So they are subjected to change and development through the efforts of teacher and teaching process. They depend on the efforts of teacher and teaching process. We can bring about changes in the students according to the whatever the material or whatever the planning the teacher has. So therefore here the students are the dependent variable and we can bring change. So they depend on the teachers. So therefore students are considered as the dependent way. And then coming to the third one is intervening ವೇರಿಯಬಲ್ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಅದು ಇದು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಟೀಚರು ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಇಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಇಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಯಾವ ವಿಷಯದ ಕುರಿತಾಗಿ ಇಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಅಂಶಗಳು ಬರ್ತವೆ. ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟರ್ವ್ಯೂನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾನೆ ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಸೊ ಯಾವ್ದು ಅವುಗಳು ಅಂತ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ contents of teaching, okay, techniques of teaching, strategies of teaching, methods of teaching, and teaching environment. See, if you want to bring the changes, yes, teacher is there, student is there. Teacher wants to bring the changes in the students. Then how she or he can bring that change? ಹೇಗೆ ತರಬಹುದು ಆ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಯನ್ನ? ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ನಿಂತಿದ್ರೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹಾಗೆ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೂ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಯನ್ನ ತರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. Teacher has to follow, the teacher has to have some material in her or his hand to bring changes. So that may be contents of teaching, what I want to teach, and then how should I teach. Techniques and strategies, which strategy can make my teaching effective, okay? And then teaching environment, that is my classroom environment. So for example, now you are also sitting in your offices or in your home or in the comfortable environment. So if your environment, whatever the environment you have, if it is not comfortable or supportive to you, this process of teaching cannot be effective. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತ ವಾತಾವರಣ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸೂಕ್ತ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೋಧನೆ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ಸ್, ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ದ ಇಂಟರ್ವೀನಿಂಗ್ ವೇರಿಯೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಆರ್ ದೇರ್, ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್, teaching strategies, methods of teaching, and then tactics of teaching, management of instructional material, teaching environment, they helps in the smooth functioning of the independent or dependent variable. It helps both the independent and dependent. Teacher go help ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, students go help ಆಗುತ್ತೆ for smooth functioning of the dependent and independent variables. So intervening variables also plays an important role in the process of teaching. Therefore, if you want to consider the process of teaching as an interactive process, that interactive process involves three variables: dependent, independent, and intervening variables. Dependent variables are the teacher, independent variables are the students, and intervening variables are the contents of teaching, methods, techniques, strategies, and techniques of teaching. Okay, so then what are the phases of teaching? ಈಗ ಒಂದು classroom-ಗೆ, if you go for a classroom to teach some content or material, how we are going to teach? In some classrooms we have observed that is there is no link between whatever the content the teacher is teaching. ಟೀಚರ್ ಬೋಧನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ನಡುವೆ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾವ್ದಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾವ್ದು ಬರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಇಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ like what we say a haphazard. There is no systematic organization we can see in the process of teaching. So if you want to be an effective teacher in the classroom and if you want to transact the curriculum, you should have a plan in your mind that what are the levels, what are the steps should I follow in my ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್. ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಯಾವ ಹಂತಗಳನ್ನ ಅನುಸರಿಸಬೇಕು, ವಿಚ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ಸ್ ಮೀ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ ಮೈ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಮೋರ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸ್ಡ್. ಒಂದು ಸಂಘಟಿತವಾದಂಥ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದಾದ್ರೆ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಫಾಲೋ ಎ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ classified or we have 3 different stages of teaching, and that 3 stages of teaching are named as pre-active phase, interactive phase, and then post-active phase. So pre-active phase ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ, ಇಂಟರಾಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಫೇಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ, post-active phase is called as evaluation stage. So if we are going to plan our process of teaching in these 3 phases, definitely our teaching will become effective and we can bring the changes in the behavior of the students. Let us see one by one what are these 3 different stages. First stage is the pre-active phase. Here see, pre means before. That is before doing my process of teaching, before acting on the process of teaching, I should plan, I should be prepared. ಮೊದಲೇ ಬೋಧನೆಯನ್ನ ಶುರು ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ತಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡಿರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದನ್ನ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್, ವೇರ್ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ pre-prepared, pre-planned before starting our process of teaching. So what are the activities we are going to do in the stage of planning, in the pre-active phase? So here the first I mentioned as establishment of goals or objectives. Establishment of objectives means what we are going to do here. So whatever the content or whatever the material I want to make students to learn in my classroom, before entering or before planning for that, so I specify what is the objective of my classroom teaching. For example, the previous example only I will take, that is the first objective, that is addition of fraction. So my objective for that class will be, after the completion of this class, the students will be able to add, are able to calculate, are able to perform the addition of fraction. ನನ್ನ ತರಗತಿಯ ಮುಗಿದ ನಂತರ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡಲು ಸಮರ್ಥರಾಗ್ತಾರೆ ಎನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇನೆ. ಸೊ ಅದು ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಮೈ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನ್. ಅದಿಲ್ಲದೆ ನನ್ನ ತರಗತಿ ಇಫ್ ಐ ಗೋ ವಿತೌಟ್ ದಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್, I may see for what purpose I am standing here, what I want to teach, what I want to make my students. So therefore, the first activity in the planning stage is to establish the objectives or goals. And then second one is discovering ways and means to achieve it. Okay, I have framed the objective, I have planned for it. Then how to find out the ways and means, how can I reach my objective? ಹೇಗೆ ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ಫ್ರಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಡಿಷನ್ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ, ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಮಾರ್ಗಗಳು ಯಾವುದು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಫೈಂಡ್ ಔಟ್ ದ ವೇಸ್ ಟು ಅಚೀವ್ ಇಟ್. Achieve it means to achieve the objectives which I have framed or established. And then choice of content or material to be taught. So according to your objectives, you have to choose your objective or material. You have an objective of making the students to add fractions. But if your material is just simple addition, then it will not help you to achieve your objective. So therefore, the another activity is choice of content and material to be taught, and then organization of the content, how to produce, ಯಾವುದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾವುದು ಬರಬೇಕು, that is how to organize the content. First I have to give a brief introduction about the fractions and then addition, then different forms of fractions, and then how to add. That is we have to organize the content, and then decision about the proper use of teaching aids. So simply teaching behind the lectern or standing on the stage does not help, or it may support the students. So if we use some teaching aids like blackboard or some charts or some live examples, that make students to learn more. So therefore you have to decide in the planning stage itself, that is what kind of teaching aid should or I can use in my classroom. You are going to take decisions about that in the planning stage. And then duration, place and management of classroom teaching. Here itself you have to plan for the what should be the duration of my class. ಕೆಲವೊಮ್ಮೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೋದು, ನೀವು ಅನುಭವಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಅನುಭವಿಸಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಪ್ರಾರಂಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅವರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇದೆ ನಂದು, ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಟೀಚ್ ಸಮ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್, ಇಷ್ಟು ಉದ್ದ ಪ್ರಿಪೇರ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೇನೆ, ಬಟ್ ದ ಟೈಮ್ ಮೇ ನಾಟ್ ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮೀ. ಟೈಮ್ ಸಾಕಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಅಯ್ಯೋ ತುಂಬಾ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ 1 hour ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಹಾಫ್ ಎನ್ ಅವರ್ ಮುಗ್ದೋಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, so these are all some why this happens, because we didn't plan what is the duration required to teach the content which have selected. So we have to decide about that duration, and then place where you want to teach. Why I'm mentioning the place means, for example, we can the teaching methods which we are going to use, that may differ. For example, whether I have to teach this in the lab or in the open field, should I take my students to the field discussion, like that. And then management of classroom teaching, how I can manage my classroom. So all these should be planned in the planning stage itself. And then decision about evaluation tools. So in the first we have objectives. So after the completion of my class, I want to know whether my objectives are achieved or not. So for that, how can I measure, or how I can see whether my objectives are achieved? That is, we can have some evaluation tools to measure whether my objectives are attained or not. So for that, in the planning stage itself, we are going to decide about which evaluation tool we have to, or we are going to use to measure the attainment of the learning, or to measure the changes in the behavior of the students. So decision about the evaluation tools means whether should I go for the written test, oral test, or some performance test, or should I ask questions in between the teaching, like that. So we should decide, or where should I give unit test or a test for 10 marks, like that. So in the planning stage, we are going to decide about the evaluation tools. So therefore, in the process of teaching, the pre-active phase, what we call planning stage, is the most important stage. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೋದು, in each and every task, whatever may be the task in the human life, first stage is the planning stage. Even for before coming to your classroom, to this class only, you are going to plan. So the timings of the class is 10 to 5. So how I have to be there. So before coming to the classroom, you are going to plan for the other activities. Then only you are going to come and sit. So if you want to build a house, you are going to have a plan. Okay. So therefore, here it is the process of teaching. We are going to deal with the human beings, that too especially with the young minds. So if we have a systematic plan, then only we can reach our students. So therefore, planning stage is the important stage in the process of teaching. And the next stage is the interactive phase, and we call it as actual phase of teaching, because whatever we have planned in the previous phase, we are going to execute in the actual in the interactive phase. So ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಅದನ್ನ we call it as actual teaching. Here we are going to implement whatever we have planned. And then the success or failure of teaching depends upon the degree and quality of classroom interaction between the failure or success of your teaching. And then quality of the classroom, how you are going to interact with your students. Okay, so even the way of interaction with the students, way of asking questions, way of transacting the materials, that all decides about your success or failure of teaching. And again, in this interactive process only, the perception happens. That means the students are going to perceive whatever the material you are going to give, and vice versa, you are going to listen to the students' interaction also. The students may ask doubts or questions. For that also you are going to answer. Then diagnosis, that also happens in the interactive process. That is while teaching. Being a teacher, you can observe your students and you can find out what are the difficulties, the learning difficulties or the difficulties the students facing in the process of learning. That also happens in the interactive phase. And then it is a reactive process. Reactive process means there will be a action and reaction. That is, if you are going to ask some questions or something to the students are going to react to you. So therefore, the interactive process is a actual teaching phase of the teaching, and we are going to execute whatever we have planned. And apart from that, it is a reactive process where there will be a reaction both from the student side and the teacher, and diagnosis happens. So that is the interactive phase. And the third phase is the post-active phase. So post-active phase means after the completion of your interactive phase, after the completion of your actual teaching, what you are going to do is considered as the post-active phase, where this is concerned with the evaluation activities. So you are going to evaluate your students. So, while in the planning stage only, I told you are going to decide about the evaluation tools. That is, whatever the decision you have taken in the planning stage, that happens in the post-active phase, where you are going to measure the degree or qualities of the expected behavioral changes as a result of teaching activities performed during interactive phase. Whatever the activities you have performed during the teaching activities, you want to measure the result of this phase, whether there is a change in the behavior of the students. For example, the same example I will take, that is addition of fractions. So in the evaluation phase, what you are going to do, you are going to give some problems to the students, okay, to solve the problem, like add some fractions, 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3. If the student is able to solve that problem, or if the student is able to add that to fraction, then we say that your teaching is success. you have achieved your instructional objective. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಹಾಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಉದ್ದೇಶಗಳನ್ನ, ಅದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಅಚೀವ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಡಿಗ್ರಿ ಆರ್ ದ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟೀಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಬಿಹೇವಿಯರಲ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್. ಫಸ್ಟ್ದು ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅವರ್ ಅಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್? ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಟ್ ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ ಮೈ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ದ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. So if the student is able to solve that problem, then you have achieved the expected behavioral changes in your students. That result may not be 100%. 100% ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. The student may be able to perform for the 2 steps and may not be able to go for the until to the last step. But he is to some extent he is able to solve the problem. So therefore, in the evaluation phase, we are going to evaluate the performance or the behavioral changes of the students, and we can do it through test. Already I told we can give test, we can have quizzes, we can observe students reactions of questions, and then comments, and then how they are going to answer to your questions. So that is post-active phase. So all these 3 phases, they are not independent, but they are related. Without planning stage, we can't go for the interactive and post-active phase, or just we can't have the interactive phase and we can't leave other 2 phases. So we should have all the 3 phases. They are closely related and they represent a continuous cycle of teaching, influencing and directing each other. That means if your planning is good, then the other 2 phases will be definitely, they are going to be good, and you can have a well an effective teaching in the classroom. So they are not independent, they are interrelated, okay, interdependent, and they influence each other. So therefore, if you want to teach, you should follow all these 3 phases. Then your classroom teaching becomes effective and it will go in a smooth manner, and it will be an organized classroom teaching. So then coming to the levels of teaching. So we have 3 levels of teaching: memory level, understanding level, and reflective level. Because in our system of education, we have different levels of education: primary, secondary, and higher education. So being a primary teacher, I can't expect an higher education skills or the knowledge or thinking in my primary level student. So as you go up, you are teaching, that is the students at the higher education level, whatever the knowledge or whatever the skills you want to teach to them, that may be different from the primary level. So the levels of teaching also changes, or it is different according to the levels of teaching. We have our memory, understanding, and reflective levels of teaching. Then coming to the memory level. So memory level ಗೆ ಬಂದ್ರೆ, it represents the involvement of the least thoughtful behavior. There is no thinking or thoughts behind the any facts. So just the student or the learner has to involve in the least thoughtful behavior, and memory plays key role in effective memorization of the material. ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೋದಲ್ಲ, ಮಗ್ಗಿ ಟೇಬಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವಲ್ಲ, we make our students to memorize it. Where so the teacher presents factual information, for example, capital of the Karnataka. So for that the answer is Bangalore, he said. Here factual information, we are not giving in detail why, how, like that. So it presents factual information. Learner mucks up facts with least involvement of thinking. Allen think madbekagilla, reasoning kodbekagilla, without understanding the meaning and application. Just he memorizes whatever the factual information given by the teacher. And it is subject centered. And teacher plays dominant and authoritarian role. Teacher is the main and learner is passive. ಅಂಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಕ್ ಮೋಟಿವೇಶನ್. ನೀವೇನೇ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆಚೆಯಿಂದ ನಾವು ಪ್ರೇರಣೆಯನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ತಾನೆ ಇರಬೇಕು ಟೀಚರ್. ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಮೆಥಡ್ಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಯೂಸ್ ಅಟ್ ದ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಆರ್ lecture, textbook, narration methods. And then through mechanical memorization, the testing devices. That means we can evaluate our students through essay, short answer, objective types of questions. Andre already I told I may ask question which is the capital of the Karnataka, who is the present Prime Minister of India, like that. They are factual information. So I am going to test the knowledge of the students just through objective type questions, short answers questions. So that is called as memory level. Memory leveling means ಬರೀ ಮೇಲ್ ಸೂಪರ್ಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಲೇಯರ್, ಬರೀ ಸ್ಮರಣೆ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಉಳ್ಕೊಳುತ್ತೆ, ಬರೀ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ನ ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಏನು ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿಯ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನ ಬೆಳೆಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದ್ರ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಏನು ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಇದು ಹೀಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟೇ, ಇದನ್ನ ಕೊಡುವಂತದನ್ನ ತಗೊಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೀಚಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಇದನ್ನ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಇವನ್ ಹಾಗಂತ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್, ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್, ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ಇಫ್ ಯು ವಾಂಟ್ ಸಮ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್, we should go for the memory level only. And then understanding level, compared to the memory level, it is quite high compared to the memory level, and it emphasizes the use of thought process and cognitive abilities in the form of reasoning and thinking powers, analysis, synthesis, comparison, application, generalization. All these happens in the understanding level. For example, if you want to understand any process or any concept, you should have all these abilities. So here whatever the material is given to you, that makes you to understand what is the reason behind this, and you are going to analyze it, you are going to synthesize, and you are going to compare that with the others, and you are going to apply the principles of that to the other situations also. So that is understanding level. So here the subject matter is structured in terms of planning, sequential and organized presentation, and meaningful learning. Illi the material is organized in the sequential form and in the meaningful learning. ಅರ್ಥಪೂರ್ಣವಾದಂತಹ ಕಲಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ಕೊಡುವಂತಹ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷಯ ವಸ್ತುವನ್ನ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ರಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೇವೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ವಿಷಯವಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಇದೇ ವಿಷಯ ಬರಬೇಕು, ಎರಡಕ್ಕೂ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಆ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೇವೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ಡ್, ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಟೀಚರ್ ರೋಲ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಥಾರಿಟೇರಿಯನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್. ಲರ್ನರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲರ್ನರ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಯಾಸಿವ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲರ್ನರ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್. ವೈ ಈಸ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ he involves in the process of thinking, analyzing, synthesizing, so he becomes active. And extrinsic motivation, even here also the students or the children will get motivation from the outside to perform all these. And then the methods which we are going to use is lecture method, but it is coupled with the demonstration or demonstration with the question answer method. ಈಗ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ನಾನು ಭಾರತದ ರಾಜಧಾನಿ, ಭಾರತದ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಪತಿ ಹೀಗಷ್ಟೇ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ಅದು ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್ಗಾಯ್ತು, ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಅದನ್ನ ನೆನಪಲ್ಲಷ್ಟೇ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದೇ ನಾವು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿನ ನಗರೀಕರಣ, ಮಾಡರ್ನೈಸೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, what are the reasons behind modernization? Why the present society the values are deteriorating ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತ ಸಮಾಜದಲ್ಲಿ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳು ಕುಸಿತಾ ಇದೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದಾಗ, ದೇ ಥಿಂಕ್, ದೇ ಅನಲೈಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅವಾಗ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಕೇಳಿದಂತಹ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವರು ಉತ್ತರವನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ದೇ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಟೀಚರ್ ಯೂಸಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಮೆಥಡ್. And here we are going to have evaluation techniques like oral, written, and practical examinations, short answer type of questions than the objective type. Objective type questions anna kelodilla, instead of that we use short answer type of questions, and we can have written and practical examinations also. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಇದು ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇದಾದ್ರೆ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್. ಓಕೆ, ದ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ is the reflective level and we consider it as a highest level and it utilizes the cognitive abilities of the learner to the maximum and it provides opportunities for the close, careful and critical examination of the existing facts, ideas, insights and generalizations. Learners they test in the light of the relevant ಎವಿಡೆನ್ಸಸ್. ಈಗ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ನೀವು ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಅಂತ ಕೊಡ್ತೇವೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಹೈಯರ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಯಂಗ್ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನೇ ಆಗ್ಲಿ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಆದ್ರೆ ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯವನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ತಕ್ಷಣಕ್ಕೆ ಒಪ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಡಿಸಿಷನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣಗಳನ್ನ ಕೇಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಎವಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತೀರಾ, ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತರ್ಕಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೇವೆ, ತರ್ಕಬದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ಹುಡುಕ್ತಾ ಹೋಗೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ದ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಫ್ರೀ ಟು ಸೆಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಹೈಪೋಥಿಸಿಸ್, ಅವರೇ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಡ್ರಾ ಇನ್ಫರೆನ್ಸಸ್, ಒಂದು ಫಲಿತಾಂಶಗಳನ್ನ ಅವರೇ ತೆಗಿಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ದ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾಟರ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಓಪನ್ ಎಂಡೆಡ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ರೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಸಾಲ್ವಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಟೀಚರ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೇಟರ್ ಹಿಯರ್. ಟೀಚರ್ ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, he just supports, he facilitates the students and learner is active, more active ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ. Intrinsic motivation, the student or the learner himself is very motivated internally. ಹೌದು, ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಇದು ಯಾಕೆ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿಬೇಕು ಎನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಆಂತರಿಕ ಅಭಿಪ್ರೇರಣೆ ಅವರಲ್ಲೇ ಶುರುವಾಗುತ್ತೆ. And we use discovery, problem solving, project and assignment methods. And preferably open-ended or essay type, critical analysis type questions are used. ಅದಕ್ಕೇನೆ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಗೋ ಫಾರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕಾಂಪಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ನೋಡಿರಬಹುದು, ಎಲ್ಲೂ ನಾವು ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಇದ್ದದ್ದು ಕೇಳಿದ್ವಿ, ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅದನ್ನೇ ನಾವು ಕೇಳುವಂತದ್ದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು. ಅನಲೈಸ್ ಆರ್ ಜಸ್ಟಿಫೈ, okay, evaluate or examine. So such type of questions are asked. Why? Because you are at the higher level and you can think, you can reflect your ideas. So hagagi being a teacher, you should think, I am at which level and what content I am teaching and what should I teach and how should I make my students to think ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ಲಿ. ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳನ್ನ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಹಾಗೆ ನಾವು ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ 2 ಲೆವೆಲ್ಸ್ ಬೇಡ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ. ಎಸ್, ಅಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ವಿ ನೀಡ್ ಮೆಮೊರಿ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್, ಬಟ್ ಅಟ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ the students as reflective thinkers. So if we follow all these 3 levels and whatever the phases of teaching I told, definitely our teaching will become effective. So with this I will end this session. If you have any doubts or questions you want to ask, you can. The next session is also mine only. I'm going to come back by 11:45. And in relation to this session, if you have any questions, please. Or if you want to add up anything, you are most welcome.
Good morning, madam.
Yes, good morning.
Madam, you said the forms of teaching are formal and informal. Formal is the one which we regularly do.
Yes.
That is the truth. Can
Yes.
you give example for informal, madam?
Informal teaching means, for example, the students, they are going to learn in the library, okay? Library, or sometimes they